What is energy exchange? Why is it unhealthy and why do we participate in it anyway? What is the difference between light and false light? Why, before doing any shadow work, it's important to first understand this difference. In this video, I'll be talking about 3 ways in which we humans can interact with light. I'll explain how these 3 ways correspond to 3 stages of development on a spiritual journey, and how they also correspond to 3 skills that we must have before we try doing any shadow work. So that's the plan. Let's see how it goes. Maybe something else will pop up along the way. But we'll start with energy exchange. So what is it? Why does it even exist? Why do we even exchange energy with people? Why is it unhealthy? Well, originally, where we learn it is our mother's womb. Before we're even born, we, living inside the mother's body, we receive all the nutrients and all the energy that we need for growth and development through mother, through her physical body. And we give her, in return, all our waste, knowing that her body will know how to deal with that waste. Physical body of a human female is designed in such a way that it knows what to do with that waste, not to get poisoned by that waste, how to filter unnecessary things, how to get rid of them. And that whole process goes on naturally within the physical body. But that is where we learn this whole idea that we can connect to a human and receive pure energy that we need for growth and life and development through another human. And in order for this thing to work, we must give our waste in return. So that is something that works in us by default. Of course, probably you never thought about this process and never considered that you're doing this in your interactions with people. And hopefully I will explain how to apply this to your relationships and interactions, this understanding, how to apply it. So basically, we all have one main channel, energetic channel, that I usually talk about in my videos. I usually talk just about this primary channel that we have directly to source and connecting us to the Mother Earth, our own personal, individual channel. But there is possibility to open up additional channel through which pure energy will flow through us to our baby. On energetic level, both male and females, like doesn't matter what kind of body you have physically. Of course, on a physical level, only a female body is able to participate in this process. But on energetic level, there is no difference. We all have the same structure, so we all have ability to create that additional channel through which pure energy will flow to the child. And that function is activated on the energetic and physical level in a woman when she's pregnant. So the child in the womb is receiving, through that channel, is receiving pure energy from source. Not only physically, the child receives nutrients, but on energetic level, that exchange is also happening. But the mother's body does not get poisoned by the energetic waste of the baby, because the baby is not located in your own personal channel. He already has his own connection. And that is where we learn this whole idea that we can connect to people, give them waste, and receive pure light from source through that person. So when we are born, of course, on the physical level, that interaction is over. But on energetic level, child is still fully connected to the mother through the same channel that was feeding, energetically feeding the baby inside the womb. So when the child is within the body, it's pretty well taken care of by nature. When the child is already outside, physically separated from mother's body, then this interaction continues only on energetic level. Now, if mother is not energetically mature yet, so you can be a mother physically, but still be a baby or a child mentally and energetically. This would mean that you are not independently fully connected to source. You're not receiving most of your light directly from source. You are still connected to your own mother. Not in a sense of like being dependent on that specific woman, but still being operating in that structure, in that mentality of being a baby, being dependent on outside sources for energy supply. So what we receive then, a baby who is dependent, fully dependent on the mother for supply of pure energy and light, and mother who still depends on other beings, other people, to give her light and love and energy supply. So the baby who is outside of her body now is perceived as one more source of energy, love, and so on. That is a mother who is not able to fully take responsibility of being an adult, being a parent in that interaction. If we take a parent, the one who is giving, and child, someone who is receiving, now we have two children interacting. A baby who is physically and energetically dependent on this woman, and we have a mother who is physically maybe independent already, can take care of herself, but energetically still dependent on energy exchange. So without even being aware of it, she enters this energy exchange with the baby. So that means turning to the baby for supply of energy and light and love, and giving the baby her waste in return. So now we have the structure of two beings exchanging waste and hoping to receive light and love and pure energy in return. So energetically, that's where the poisoning starts. You give waste, parent gives waste, and that's how you get introduced to this world where you don't know any other way of interacting with the reality other than searching for energy sources in this horizontal plane, not knowing that there is a vertical way to connect to the source directly, through the channel that you have for yourself. If the mother did not know how to use her own channel, the same way she could not show you or teach you how to connect to yours, so you start participating in this constant energy exchange with other living beings, searching for energy, light, whatever, love, whatever else you're searching for, through this chain of horizontal exchanges, believing, most likely, that what you're giving them all, maybe to your mother, maybe to your parents, maybe to people in your relationships, you inside can actually sincerely believe that you are giving them light in return, light and love and appreciation, and you might actually believe that. But if you've never consciously transferred your energy supply from, if you haven't switched from the position of the receiver, the child, to the position of the parent, if you haven't actually done that switching of the roles, then you are just feeding everyone your waste and expecting light and love and money. What else you're expecting in return? Not getting it, because probably those people with whom you are interacting, participating, doing the same thing. And that might explain why you might be disappointed in some of your relationships, because you both sides expected love, respect, and but received something less pleasant. So that is the confusion that appears because we are not educated properly in this sense since childhood, from the point of understanding how energy works and what it is. So by default, we participate in the only thing that we know, something that we learned in the womb of our mother. So if you're lucky enough and you're born to a mother who was, before she got pregnant with you, was already self-sufficient, absolutely mature, and absolutely responsible adult and parent who is able to connect for her own energy supply to source directly, knowing that she cannot perceive her newly born child as a source of anything at all other than waste. If she hasn't yet, if you have such a lucky situation in your life where your mother learned how to do that first, and she learned how to transmute, knowing that everything that she's going to receive from the baby is going to be just baby's waste. So she mastered her skill of transmutation, alchemical transmutation, everything that is discussed in all of these mystical teachings and all of that. It's all talking, all those teachings are talking about this transition from the position of victim, a child, somebody who depends on energy, supply, love, from someone on the horizontal plane, transition to the state where you are the responsible one. You are the creator. You know how to create that spark. You know how to connect through that spark to the source, and you don't need to depend on anyone horizontally. You know you can access everything you need on the vertical plane. That comes through mastering the skill of alchemical transmutation, meaning you will be receiving poison, waste from the baby, and you should not be so sad, upset about it. You already know how to alchemize it into something which will not poison your energetic body. Because once again, while this process with the baby is happening on the physical just in the physical body, it's taken care of by nature. It's only when the baby is already outside, that's where it matters already if you are a parent or if you are a baby who gave birth to another baby. And then this chain of codependent interactions goes, this baby is looking at you for energy supply, you are looking back at your mother, she's looking back at her mother, and so on, until that one person in your whole ancestral history, that one woman who was stable by herself and not looking back at someone else. That woman is usually the called Regina of the family, the queen. What's the best way to translate it? Yeah, like the mother, main mother of the family. The one who does not look back to someone else for source of supply and knows that everyone who is dependent on her is under her responsibility to take their waste and transmute. So I hope that kind of explains why I keep saying that energy exchange is not a healthy thing to participate in. On a horizontal plane, we can only exchange waste. It is good for training. If you are someone who is trying to understand how to generate this ability and how to master this ability to transmute anything you receive into gold, into love, into something beautiful, if you're in process of obtaining that skill, yeah, you might be open to these exchanges because that gives you material to train and master that skill until you can literally transmute anything that is thrown at you, any kind of waste that any person who attaches to your channel tries to throw at you. You know how to transmute it. Then you shift to a state where you can actually participate in healthy relationships, or you can be helpful to others. And those of you who I know are trying to help people, shine your light, and so on. This is why I find it important to first explain to you this process so that you unknowingly, with that desire to shine light and radiate light to people, just so you unknowingly don't just poison everyone around you. How do you know if you're poisoning or not? By understanding what state are you in. Are you still looking for any outside sources to solve your problems or to save you? Or do you blame anyone, anything for all the sadness or darkness of your existence? Any kind of situation within the last year or two which had shaken you so much that you wanted to give up and blame everything on the creator or whoever, then you're still in that position of a child, position of a victim, position of somebody who needs a hand to pull you out of your own poison and darkness and waste, or save you from this terrible matrix world. So once you stop shifting responsibility from yourself to anything or anyone else, that's when you can know that you are maturing. If you're actually willing to take responsibility and you're doing it playfully and you're enjoying it and you know how to transform it, then probably you are getting close to being able to shine, radiate, help others, channel. I've been getting requests to teach you how to channel or connect to. That channeling, once again, before you start shining, radiating, channeling, it's important to understand this difference between light and false light. Here, now, with this topic of energy exchange, I hope you can grasp the difference. Light being the light, that the actual light, the original light, when it comes directly from source in its original form, and compare it to light that has already been partially digested by a human being or by some other being on this physical plane, that partially digested light will be light distorted, will be light reflected. It doesn't mean that it will always be bad, evil, like, it just means that it is not in its pure original form. It has gone through my, for example, prism, physical prism. I am a person, and even if I have access to direct light, still when I let that light go through me, through my linguistic apparatus, for example, this light has to be a little bit distorted, in a sense, like this is like a prism. I have prisms through which I can formulate that light. When I send it out, it is not already that direct light. It's partially digested by me. It's gone through a whole bunch of prisms, which I represent as a person. So in that sense, the words that come through me are not original light. This is already light distorted, reflected by my own mind. So understanding this difference, when you are receiving light, perceiving light from another human being, for example, being able to clearly determine what light are you currently perceiving. And in the same way, if you know the difference, how it feels within you, you can be able to determine when you are giving off light, when you're shining light, how distorted is it? Are you shining off the light in its original form? Or you are distorting it? The difference will be felt on an energetic level, because the pure light, for example, in my case, it can shine through me only when I'm completely still, completely silent, not moving, not talking, not thinking. When I'm completely still, that's when the light shines through me in its purest form that I can currently channel. When I speak, I have to distort it. I have to come up with words. Words are distortions. So this understanding the difference between light in its original form and light distorted, a bit at least, clearly understanding that difference is a key on a spiritual journey for your own awareness, self-awareness, because the difference between light and false light is initially it's the difference between knowing and thinking. Knowing is a state of being. Thinking is a process. It's an activity. It's something that you do, movement. So clearly understanding that difference, that when you know something, you can just be. You can just be still. When you know something, you don't need to think about it. And that is a state of knowing is equal to the state of stillness, state of love, state of joy. Those states, state of connection to light, they are all related to being able to be still. Only in that stillness, real light can shine through you. And you can experience real light only in stillness. The thinking is the area when I talk about this would be the original light. Thinking would be light reflected. Because that is a state when you're thinking, that means you are still seeking truth. You're still searching for answers. You're still searching for that understanding. You need to go, go, go. And that is a state of constant movement. It means you haven't found that core, your center. You want to maybe settle at the center and be still. You don't know how. You're still searching for that how you're going around, going around, going around in circles. And understanding clearly what state are you in every given moment is something that you need on a spiritual journey. If you don't know the difference between the state when you're thinking, you're actively producing thoughts, you're building chains of ideas, you're moving, and you consider that enlightenment, and you start going and preaching and teaching and sharing your ideas, you can't stop sharing your ideas because they're so valuable. Just know the difference between knowing, which can be still, and thinking, which cannot afford stillness, not even for a second. You can't. That is the symptom of an agitated reptilian mind. Worried, searching, worried, afraid of death, searching, trying to grasp on, attached to some cling. That is the agitated reptile, which, as I mentioned already in my previous video, can be very quick at thinking, producing thoughts. You think that in that process, every thought that appears in your mind might actually seem new and fresh and bright to you. That is the illusion of the matrix. Every thought that appears in that process of actively thinking, you experience as an epiphany, like I got it, and it's like I ran out of my English vocabulary sometimes, so but I'll explain it anyway, the best way I can. So this difference is something that we need to master, at understanding this difference, and this skill of discernment between the states. Are you in a state of knowing, or are you still in the state of thinking? No problem with the state of thinking. It's useful activity, as long as you are aware that you are currently in that state of instability, that state of thinking, that state of searching, seeking. If you're still seeking truth, it might not be a very good time to start sharing truth and trying to radiate your light, trying to save other people and help someone. That is the idea, where the difference between you settling at the core, connecting to the source, turns you into the parent, in that the giver. Then you can give without poisoning the receiver of your information, your bright ideas, and so on. But if you start talking too early, when you yourself are not stable at the core yet, you're not a giver, you're not someone who can alchemize anything that your kids throw at you. You are still against some things that you might be poisoned with. You're still like some kind of waste that if it's thrown at you, you will lose your balance. That state is not the best state to share your truth, maybe. Because here, maybe I'll give this little detail about some qualities of light, qualities of the element of fire, which light represents. And this quality is that unlike any other element that we work with, other three, earth, water, and air, unlike these three, fire, when it's split, it does not lessen. Meaning that if I take a rock and I need to divide it into 5 parts, for example, I will be able to clearly determine the difference between the original rock or original amount of water or air, any volume that I take. If I split it, it will be clearly visible to see the difference between the original size, volume, and the pieces that are split of the original. But the element of fire, which light represents, has this unique quality. That's when it's split, it does not lessen. So we cannot see the difference. So every spark that breaks off from the original spark will look exactly like the original. Meaning, if I have one candle and you bring me 10 candles that we need to light from this one, now we have 11 candles burning, and I ask you to tell me, determine by looking at the fire only at the fire element of these 11 candles, which one was the mother candle, the original one, from which other 10 candles were born, or who here is the light-giving element and who are the babies of that one. Will you be able to determine that by looking at the physical flame only? That's the unique quality of light. You will not be able to see difference between these 11 lights. That's why on the physical level, it's impossible to determine which light is more lighter than others, which one is true light, which one is you will not be able to determine if you try to determine it on the physical level by looking at lights, which means by looking at those bright sparks that you have in your mind when you're thinking. You have bright spark, oh, maybe it's that, maybe it's this, maybe you have sparks. You've asked me, how do I determine where it's my reptile thinking and where it's the understanding that I receive from my quantum brain working, accessing the quantum field? How do I know which one is what? By looking at thoughts only, you will never know. You will never be able to see because they will every spark will look like exactly like the other spark. That is why you get lost in your thoughts, ideas, being unable to determine which ones are true, which ones are true expressions of true light, true creativity, true idea, true bright realization, and which are just reflections of your own mind, which means product of the reptilian mind, which does not think in that way of understanding of thinking. What the reptile does, it only recombinates zeros and ones, zeros and ones, zeros and ones, zeros and ones. And if you're playing that game of recombinating constantly, changing location of mirrors in your mind and playing with yourself and feeling like you're coming up with ideas, you will get lost in those reflections from time to time. That's natural. But along the way, gaining this skill of discernment, being able to discern between your thoughts, which thoughts are yours from your core, received from the source, and which thoughts are just reflections of your agitated reptile. And here, if I give you this, I hope you remember in the previous video about the Sun card, where I talked about that mechanism of incarnation, I spoke about these two impulses. The impulse that we try to create, I showed you how to create that spark going upwards, and how that spark is different from the spark going downwards. That difference, in order to even feel it, you have to be located strictly at the center of your being. I'm teaching you how to tune to that, but I want you to be aware that most of those who are still listening to me, you are not at the center yet. You have probably wandered a little bit off, living somewhere a little bit off the center. Just know that when you're off the center, you will not have access to this clear sensitivity to the difference between two impulses. So it is a skill that needs to be gained with practice. The difference between these two impulses is very, very subtle, very subtle. And it's much more subtle than I show when I explain. I show it to you with sound, with facial expressions, with movement. I show direction of impulse, joy, and disappointment. I exaggerate when I explain, when I show it to you, because I want you to get the point. But on the level of nervous impulses, I want you to understand on that level of nervous impulses, the difference between these two impulses is much, much, much more subtle. It's like a wave going up and down, but that wave is so tiny that to feel at every given moment which movement, like in which direction is that wave moving, up or down, up or down. That is impossible to sense when you are far off your center, living somewhere in your mind, dreaming about. So you have to first settle at the center, then tune that to that sensitivity between the difference between these two impulses. And that ability to feel the difference between them will be your like a standard of measurement to understand the difference between the moments when you're connecting with light, pure light, and when you are connecting to the light distorted, light partially digested, light reflected, the impulse going down. So that would be the difference between the activity of your quantum consciousness and the difference between activity of your reptilian brain. And to understand that difference, you have to work on sensitivity to the difference, work on settling at the center of your being, and also, third skill to develop is the skill of being still, being stable for prolonged period of time. Because you can hear this only in silence. If you're constantly moving with that agitated mind, constantly moving, you just have no chance to catch that impulse and feel. You'll be just making stuff up and fooling yourself that you got it, I understood, I should go tell everyone, save everyone. That is all activity of the reptile, not even close to the center. You can feel that difference only when you learn to be still for a long enough period of time. And that is something you need to work on to afford that stillness, because that is not available to anyone whose main energy, most of energy of whom is still focused on the level of 3 lower chakras. And that is what you work with when you work with your shadow. Here is for those who were asking me to post some of the tools, techniques for doing the shadow work. Why I avoid doing that on my channel so far. Specifically because of this. Working with shadow means working with the depth of your being, working with the 3 lower, darker, deeper chakras. Those levels of energy are pretty dense and dark. And if you go into that darkness before you've learned how to generate light and how to be light, if you go into that area without these abilities, you'll get lost in that darkness, in that area of reflections of your own thoughts. You'll just get pulled deeper. You will not be able to determine if what you're seeing is truth or if what you're seeing is a reflection of your agitated mind. So knowing that area of the moon, reflected light, has the quality of the tricky quality of being able to confuse you unless you know how to generate a spark, that spark that I spoke about in the sun card video. Once you learn how to generate a spark, then you learn how to be still long enough, long period enough, for this spark to naturally grow into a stable fire. Then you have this fire, like you can hold it as a torch, and then you can go into any darkness you want, and you know that even if your torch dies, if the darkness is too dark, too heavy, you know how to generate a spark at any given moment. No matter who or what attacks you from around the corner, you know how to generate light. That's why on my channel I focus on convincing you to first focus on gaining these skills. How to be still, how to generate a spark, and how to channel the light, knowing that what you have access to is actual light. That is skill of discernment. If what you are channeling is light reflected, if what you are channeling is poison, then it might be very dangerous going into the darkness. You'll just hurt yourself and get nothing else out of that project. Story of Divine Sophia, I had it on my mind, that gnostic story where that myth of the Sophia who was sitting on her level and looking up at the light original and got distorted by a light reflected, false light, got distorted to such an extent that she believed that what she sees is the true light, and she went for that light, for that false light. And that in the Gnostic mythology, that whole story of Sophia's fall, she's sitting looking at the original light, distorted by a false light, she falls for that false light, and that fall is what creates our physical universe as we know it. So that story of Sophia, I want you to use it for your own daily practice, because it's not just a story of some woman falling from the cloud and so on. It's a story which we can use as an allegory for the process that is happening within us, within our energetic and mental body, constantly, all the time, every day, every hour, every minute. This process is happening. It's talking about these two impulses and difference between them. The impulse looking up at the true source of light, and the impulse which looks exactly like that one. But when you fall for it, inevitable creation of universe happens. Then you have to deal with that. So for some of those people who wrote comments like, tell us who, like, you know how that process of incarnation happens, so you know who did this to us, who trapped us here, we need to find, and like, for those who are asking me who is guilty for trapping us, I want you to understand this main idea. Finding whom to blame will not take you very far, because you probably don't have any plan after you find out who is guilty, who you want to blame. You can blame Sophia in this specific story. For example, you can blame Demiurge, you can blame that lion-headed snake if you want. If you're searching for someone to blame, then I want you to understand that you're just not going anywhere. Because with that approach, my question to you is, what do you do after you find out who is guilty? Once you find out whom to blame, what's your plan? What you gonna do next? Most probably you don't have any plan, right? So that's why I'm suggesting you my plan. And my plan is to use that Gnostic mythology, that whole Gnostic story, for what it was actually meant for. Not for just studying stories and history and mythology and just to know that it happened. but to apply it to your own quest, to your own connection, gaining that direct connection to knowing, to knowledge, that through your own experience, not just by studying stories that someone told you and you have a choice to believe or not believe. Gnosis is something that appears within you as direct knowing, which comes from experience, which comes from connecting to that understanding of that process that's happening within you every day, every moment. If you understand what is happening within you, you have a chance to use that mechanism better and construct a better universe for you if you would like to. Instead of shifting responsibility and finding someone to blame, taking that responsibility, trying to learn and understand how it feels within you every moment that you act exactly like Sophia. You can be looking at direct light, light is shining at you, everything is beautiful, but something appears in your field of vision or your field of perception that looks exactly like original light. Just like you, because as I told you, this is a quality of light. Two sparks will look alike, exactly alike. By looking at sparks, you will never be able to know by just looking, was that light original or not? You will not be able to determine which word is more true than the other, which light is more true than the other by looking at lights only. You will not know, but on the level of energy, the difference between that one candle and 11 babies, even if it's not visible on the physical level, the information between information about how it happened, who was the original light and who are the 10 candle babies of that one, that information is recorded on the level of information and the level of energy. So once you learn how to tune to the level of energy and sense that difference, because on the level of energy and information, that one original candle will be the mother of these 10 babies. But on the physical plane, they will all look same. So when within your daily life you experience this process, for example, when you are like, let's go back to those two impulses, the difference between the impulse of joy, which you create as a spark within yourself, and the impulse of slight, that disappointment, up, down. The key here is that this impulse that goes up, the impulse of joy, bliss, it is also called the impulse of Christ, the masculine impulse going up, is the impulse that does not go far from the center. Meaning that when you experience joy, you usually can just be. You experience love, you experience bliss, you can just be in that feeling. When you experience it, you can be still for a while at least. So that's why we aim for reaching that Christ impulse, because it's just so close to the very center of your being. It's just one step out of the center of who you are. But imagine you're in that joy, or you're with someone you love, everything is good, and then a thought appears in your mind, like something pops up, like, or you see something, you hear something, idea comes, something unpleasant, like you're in joy, and suddenly in that joy, a slight impulse down comes. You experience it as, what is this? What is this I'm feeling? What is this? Is it something they said? Is it something they did? Is it maybe it's because when I came in they did, and then they said this, and then when I called, and then you start building chains of logic. See, when you're at the center, when in joy, you don't think. When that impulse, positive one, you experience, you don't move usually much. But when you experience the impulse, slight, very subtle impulse down, you start thinking. And how do you think? The reptile in you, how does the reptile think? It thinks in zeros and ones. So what you start doing from that center point, in stillness, no thought, nothing, one thought appears, seems like bright light to you, like a bright idea. Why don't I follow it? And you start going, falling like Sophia for that fake light that you see. You're like, it's worth following. Let's think about it. You go for it. And how you think, you take that one light that you saw and you split it into maybe it's this or maybe not, but maybe it's this. And you start building chains of zeros and ones. Maybe it's from nothing. You build, maybe it's this, but maybe not. Maybe it's because they did it. And you start building from each one. 0, 1 from each one, 0, 1 from each one, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, splitting them. That's how you build those chains of dualities, chain of logic, which you experience as thinking. And you think that is the most beautiful thing that you can do. For a lot of those who are in contact with me, they're usually very proud of their ability to think. And usually such people get kind of offended when they are asked to stop thinking. They're like, that's the best thing I can do. Like, but it's a skill, okay. But once you gain awareness of this process, knowing that this process of building chains of zeros and 1 0 is done by a reptile, and that process, once when you feel it, it will feel like bright ideas popping up in your mind. Knowing that not every bright light that you see in your mind is worth following. Because that's exactly what Sophia did. She went for that false light and she started splitting her original light into dualities. She created first couples of dualities, then from those couples, she started building those chains of dualities, and that's how the physical world appeared. So once you understand how that mechanism works, you can actually gain access to building another, maybe a more comfortable reality for yourself. But you have to first understand how it works, then understand that if you are working in the realm of the Sophia, of the feminine, of the darkness, of the water, you're working in the realm of the moon, realm of reflections. That's the realm of the matrix, realm of zeros and ones, dualities. You can build stuff there, but it will always consist of two parts, good and bad. And that is one way of creating your reality. Most probably you will complain that it has too much suffering, but it has to have, because that is the quality of world which consists of dualities. Positive, negative, positive, that's the part of. So understanding like in which world do you want to keep creating. You can keep creating through only energy exchange with others, give them your bright ideas, let them give you bright ideas, exchange bright ideas of your reptile with their reptile, and exchange your fears, exchange your poison, exchange your partially digested light, reflected light. And you will get from time to time lost in those reflected lights. That you will, once when you're fully lost, you'll experience it as depression, sadness, a state of a victimhood. But knowing what you're working with, if you're on a spiritual journey, if you're listening to me, probably you are. So I suggest first gaining the skill of sensitivity to that difference first, being able to clearly see the difference when you are in the realm of reflections already, and making a conscious choice. Like, do you want to follow that thought? Even though in that moment it might seem bright to you. Do you want to follow it or not? Being able to make that conscious choice is the first step, which comes with that discernment, skill of discernment between these two impulses. What you enjoy and what you don't really enjoy. The impulse that you don't really enjoy, if you follow it, you build chains of zeros and ones. And how do you know? Someone or yourself, if you're doing it, you will know that to work in this area of reflected light, you have to use a lot of labels. It's very important because you cannot build chains of zeros and ones if you don't label them. It's not like you can't just like by zeros and ones, we will not be able to communicate. So you will have to think in terms which are split into good, bad. You have to label things. You have to, like every thought that appears to you when you are in the reflected area, in the area of the moon, will come as truth. That's first quality. Don't be fooled by that, my suggestion. Second, when it comes, and it comes like truth about women, truth about men, split already. Because at the core, at the center, that duality is not born yet. The first duality that is born is Jesus impulse, Christ impulse, let's say, and Sophia. Christ impulse and Sophia, positive and negative. These two impulses are the only ones that exist at the center. If your structure has more than that, it means you are working in the area of matrix, area which, in order to build a tree of logic, you build them, you label them, you build, you label, you build, you label. That's the only way you can operate in matrix, by labeling. Otherwise you'll get lost in your zeros and ones. You have to call those are bad people, these are good. Okay, from there we build. Now we split these good people into women and men. Okay, now we split these women into good women and bad women. And you have to constantly label things. That's how you know that you are working in, and clear distinction that everything that comes out of your mouth or comes up in your mind seems like truth, because that truth is also one of the concepts of duality. There should be truth and lie. So, like, of course, every thought that comes out in your mind is truth. So you will call every video that you post the truth about channeling, the truth about twin flames, the truth about Christ, and the truth. It's important for you. If you're a reptile, it's important that everything you say is truth. Because at the core, there's no importance to such terms. So that's how you can define determine someone when you are interacting with a teacher, for example, my favorite ones, Sadhguru, for example, or Abraham Hicks. You can see that these people don't use such terms much. They talk, especially if we, let's say, Abraham Hicks as my favorite example of all. I always suggest anyone who, if you are listening to any channelings, or please listen to her. She's the best example of someone who followed the whole instruction. Instruction being, first, deal with your own problems, first become the parent, first become somebody, first become fully independent, meaning close the needs of your lower chakras first, and then start channeling. Then you have the guarantee that what you're channeling can be pure light. In that case, like as pure as it can be, because it still has to be distorted by vocabulary. It cannot be 100% light, but being around that person can be healing and useful. If you have an opportunity to participate in her events, I strongly suggest that. Because that's an example of someone who first completed the needs of the lower three chakras and then started radiating. Sadhguru is another example, a little bit more dense, but depending on what you like. But examples of opposite nature could be people like Aleister Crowley, or we had examples of Osho, or currently we have some examples active online of people who are not done completing the need, like their three lower chakras are still unfulfilled, In case of Osho and Aleister Crowley, they're gone already, but those examples are very colorful. If you want to see, for example, someone like Aleister Crowley, even though he got access to the spark, but he has not fulfilled the need of for his independence. He was still struggling with the labels that his mother put on him. He never fully separated from the mother, so he was still in competition with the world, with society, with like the power struggle initially with his mother, and he was trying to prove his independence and his sexual freedom to his mother originally, but then to the rest of the world as well. And that's what we have when someone starts channeling before the needs of the lower three chakras are fulfilled. So what we get as a result is a very, very distorted message. Very distorted with a lot of element of fire. He never managed his relationship with fire, but he made a lot of noise, which is what you make if you are trying to figure out your relationship with the key between the opening of the heart chakra, where you get access to stillness and being in the center. Right before you enter the heart chakra, you have to pass through the gate of the Manipura chakra. Manipura chakra is actually the place where you attach to your mother for that energy exchange thing, remember? That umbilical cord, it goes through on the level of Manipura chakra. And in a like healthy strategy of motherhood, mother who is ready, mature before she gives birth, first nourishes the baby inside her womb. Then when the baby is outside, she is able to provide through the child's channel, provide all the best pure energy to the child, not feed the child any poison, any trash, and feed only pure light. Then the child grows loved and full of energy and light until a certain age. And when that child becomes strong enough to try to compete for power with his loving mother, that is level of Manipura, is the chakra of warriors. So it's a chakra of competition. It starts pulling, like he becomes so strong and so independent, he wants to have his own opinion. He wants to give advices to mother. That is when in our past, in those cultures that we used to have things like an initiation ritual or some kind of rites of passage, or kind of a ritual where this really loved, nourished baby who grows up into almost like getting into adulthood already, but to shift from that state of babyhood, when he is ready to be independent, he needs to have that umbilical cord cut. And that is the ritual where the mother is supposed to kind of reject the baby, reject for that baby to have a chance to gain independence. And unfortunately, in our wonderful culture, not very many mothers are willing to fully disconnect, let the child fully disconnect from her energy. Because for mothers, that would mean just letting that her precious energy just go somewhere else. Mother, unhealthy mother, raised in this culture of energy exchange, will not want the child, the energy, to leave the family energetic field. She'll keep the child attached, regardless, boy, girl, keep the energy attached to keep it within the family. She will do it by maybe some kind of like programming, or by guilt, shame, and putting responsibility for her happiness, maybe for her safety, onto the child, or many, many different creative ways our women come up with when they don't want to let the energy out of the family. And in this whole video, I want you to be clear. I talk about women, mothers, because it's just easier to explain this concept using the actual mother. But men, physical men who cannot give birth, still have the same energetic structure. Okay, so men are pretty good at keeping the child locked in the family system as well, not allowing a child to fully disconnect from the family's energy, let that energy go. Men are also good at holding. And that is what happened in the example. I go back to Aleister Crowley, who never got that approval, never got that mother's blessing to just be you, be free. He never received that blessing, so he forever got stuck in that, trying to solve that competition, like who is the, I'm gonna be the boss, I'm gonna do things my way. No, you can't do that. No, you can't do my way, you have to do my way. And all that competition is happening on the level of Manipura chakra, and until you've actually mastered spiritual alchemy, you won't be able to shift. But that's a process, okay? So example of Osho is the same thing. He was stuck on his own lower chakras, but he already got access to radiating and channeling. He started channeling. So what do you channel? When you are still participating in energy exchange, you're channeling poison. It's mixed with some light. Yeah, there is some light in that mixture, but for those who are working on their skill of discernment, this could be the key. If you want to channel, if you want to give light to people, please first learn to clearly discern, have that skill of discernment between what are you given. And for those who are consuming information and energy and content, it's also important to learn to understand what are you consuming. Because these are three ways in which we can interact with light. We can consume light, we can generate light, and we can be light. The being light means channeling light. It's the same thing. So if you are fully in that poison exchange, energy exchange, so most likely you're eating distorted light, you're generating distorted light, like Crowley did, for example, light, but distorted. And you are channeling distorted light once again. My favorite example, Esther Hicks, has completed all three. Learned how to be someone first, became independent person first. That's, I don't know her whole life story, but by just looking at what she's channeling, I see that every step of the instruction has been completed before she entered the channeling. And if you look at, there's a lot of people who try channeling, I see on YouTube. And if you see that someone who just decided, I'm going to be channeling, I'm going to channel, learned some technique, how to do it, but hasn't fully fulfilled the need of like controlling people, or just that desire for control, for example, you start channeling, but then suddenly within your channeling, something comes up saying like, trying to suggest people what candidate on the election they should vote for, and if not, you will be, a disaster is gonna come. So that is a distorted channeling done by someone who still wants power, who still wants to influence somebody's opinion, but at the same time wants to channel, so it comes out kind of distorted. And that is just something to keep in mind if you are trying to channel or planning to channel or listening to channelers, to see the difference. Someone who is using a lot of labels is probably still working on their own fulfillment of their own needs and desires of lower levels, and not be so confused with the terms which somebody on those lower levels will try to trigger your reptile. That's also one thing that trigger, like if you vote for that one, the world will end. The aim is to trigger your reptile. That's how you know that this information is coming from the distorted light, reflected light. Their own reptile is scared, so it feels important to scare everyone else. The same idea is like, it's the last portal, we all must hurry, the last transformation, the earth, you must rush, you must hurry. This idea of hurry and this idea of urgency is also a quality of the reptilian brain, because like reptilian brain cannot stop moving, so it's the urgency is the quality of the reptile. So whenever you hear these messages, you urgently have to change this, you urgently have to transcend. If you don't transcend this week, you're gonna be doomed, you're gonna be left, we're all going in 5D, you're gonna be left in 3D, which is worse of course than 5D. And it's not like labels, numbers, anything that triggers scare, like fear in your reptile, comes from someone who is lost in their own corridors of mirrors, reflections. That is the area of moon, that is the area of a reptile, that is the area of a victim, that is the area of a child who is desperately searching for some hope, some relief, some... So that is my main message in this video. Don't rush into shadow work. Don't rush into channeling. Don't rush into helping other people. Because if you are rushing, if it's urgent for you to start helping, saving world, if you're rushing, you are under the influence of your reptilian brain. Nothing good is gonna be produced. Like a lot of bright ideas might come out of, but none of them are gonna be light. They're gonna be reflected light, and we can multiply reflected light endlessly. If you want, we can, as scientists do. Most of scientists are working with just dissecting things, into dissecting atom more and more. The more you dissect, the more you produce, actually. Things that were not manifested. By dissecting them, you only complicate this matrix. So you can keep dissecting if you want, keep complicating this reality, or you can choose to not to look that way, maybe for now, until you are strong enough and stable enough as a source of light, and then you can go into shadows and darkness and shine for others and for yourself. But once again, before you try to save other people, save yourself. That's the idea of a mother who wants to save her child. If you want to save, if you're under that effect of not trusting God, you want to save, most probably you're already under effect of reptile, most probably you're already poisoning your child with your ideas, your fears, your thoughts. So at that point, it's better to just let the child go and know that the child has his own connection to source, and the source will take better care of this child than you with your fears. By holding someone whom you want to save, you're most probably just feeding them poison. And if you are calling that love, you are just complicating everything for yourself and others, because that makes the other person guilty for like leaving you confused. And this idea of two people who are both still in that childish position, and they meet and they fall in love. They use that word love to explain the desire to interact with each other. But for someone who is in energy exchange, that love is actually hunger. If you still need light to feed your sources, whenever you see a bright light shining, any stable light source of light, you will be naturally attracted to that light, feeling like, Mama, Mama. You connect to that. You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. You're so bright. You're so full of light. I love you. And that idea is like, to translate it to normal language, that would mean I'm so hungry for energy and you have a lot of it. Why don't I just attach my tentacles to your field and eat your energy? You're lucky if that person has a lot of free energy radiating, but in most cases, you get tricked by a light. You attach, that person maybe gets tricked by your light. You attached these tentacles to each other on the level of Manipura chakra. You just start poisoning each other. And then after a while, you both feel poisoned and disappointed and tired, not wanting why you're giving so much love and you're not receiving enough in return. You feel used maybe, or abused for in some cases, or you feel not appreciated enough, not loved enough. Both sides feel that way because both see the other one as the source of light, while actually both are giving each other waste, distorted, reflected light as food. Eat that, eat that. Doesn't that feel good? Doesn't that taste good? You feed each other poison. No wonder after a while that poisoning, you reach your limit and then you separate and story is over. So unless you are mature enough and unless both parts are mature enough as two adults who are fully connected to their own source and don't rely on energy supply on the horizontal plane at all, and then these two people meet and they decide to interact, then they don't connect to each other horizontally and don't put these channels into each other, Manipura chakra, which means competition doesn't start, jealousy doesn't start, and only then healthy interaction can happen. And in the mystical stories, it's usually described as that spiritual marriage of Christ and Sophia, or story of Jesus and Maria Magdalena, all that stuff referring to this connection or marriage of two beings who, even though impulses are different, male and female, they are both absolutely centered, relying on their own stability in the center and having their own direct connection to source. Only then their interaction can be actually an interaction of light, interaction of expansion, creativity, and beautiful flow of energy and creation, instead of just mutual poisoning and disappointments. So I hope you learned something from this video. Main advice is, please don't rush into the darkness. Don't rush into working with your emotions. First, focus on training yourself how to be stable, how to generate a spark, and how to know the difference between the types of sparks that you're generating. Is it the spark up, or is it the spark reflected, which will take you down before you are ready? I hope this was useful. Bye-bye.